Hello, my name is Brandon Enright, and today I want to show off the progress I've made tumbling Eric Vergo's Master Pentultimate. So the Master Pentultimate is essentially the outside shape of this puzzle, minus the center cap. It doesn't have the visible centerpieces, so that the center cap is solid and you can't see the internal structure of the puzzle. So it still has the corners, the points, the brillic edges of the pyramid crystal edges, and then the storming center / Pentultimate center. Eric Vergo's Master Pentultimate turned fantastically. It turned basically the same as the multi-dodecahedron. When you tightened it down, it never caught, and it still had sort of the similar friction that this puzzle has, but it turned great. So I'm not tumbling the puzzle to fix how well it turns. I'm really basically tumbling it for aesthetics. Plus, some of the stickers started coming off, and I figure if I'm going to go through the work of restickering the puzzle, I might as well tumble it while I'm at it. So I have some experience tumbling a puzzle previously. So this is Will's Rex Rhombic Dodecahedron, and this puzzle was a borderline bad print. That is, I'm trying to get my camera's in macro mode here, and I'm trying to get it to focus, and it's really hard to tell if it's in focus or not. But this was essentially a bad print, or a borderline bad print, in that it was really stiff, and you could only turn pieces clockwise. You couldn't really turn them counterclockwise because of the way the green in the pieces worked, and just sort of the way you held it. And so I bought a tumbler, and I decided to tumble this puzzle to change the tolerances in it and to get it to function better. And indeed, it succeeded in doing that. And somewhat to my surprise, it also did a very, very good job of polishing the pieces. I'll try to see if I can get that in focus. It did a very good job of polishing the pieces and making them very, 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 very smooth and sort of self-lubricating. So if you own a nylon printed puzzle, you sort of are familiar with the sandpapery sound and the sandpapery look of the pieces. Let's see if I can get this in focus here. Adjust my light. And so even like the fantastically turning dreidel cube, and it's basically the geometry of this puzzle causes it to just turn amazing. It turns like a dream. It still has the sandpapery sound, and if I can show you here, the pieces really still have this very rough and gritty look to them. I can't tell if that's in focus or not. But here is the tumbled center cap for the Master Pentultimate. Compare that with a tumbled brillic edge. Let's see, I don't know how well that's in focus. Here is a corner. Now the corner hasn't been polished. Basically, I tumbled it, so I did this in multiple steps. So I did all the pieces for about 72 hours in a very, very, very coarse grit. And then I did them for another roughly 72 hours in a fine grit, a very, very, very fine grit. And the coarse grit did a good job of wearing down sort of the big structure, sort of the big gritty portions of these pieces. And then the fine grit did a pretty decent job of wearing down sort of the fine structure. And then the porcelain beads did a good job of adding shine. So these two pieces went through everything up to the porcelain bead. So this is the Megamix corner on the inside of the puzzle. And so it doesn't show out on the outside, so it's no big deal. And then this is the center cap, and you can see that this one's matte and this one's sort of glossy. And the lines that are going through it are actually from the printer, and they used to be a lot more pronounced, and now they're a lot more subtle, even though I know with the shine of the light you can sort of see them pretty easily. Here's another center cap that also has lines going through it. And really, like the corners also have those lines. They're just a little bit more subtle. I can't tell if that's actually in focus or not. It doesn't look like it. Yeah. But because on the multi-dodecahedron, so that's the Megamix corner. This is the Megamix corner. Because you can't see it on the Master Pentultimate, it doesn't. You know, I polished it just to make it smooth, just to make the nylon interaction a lot better. And I didn't bother to do the porcelain spheres to make it nice and glossy and shiny. But if you have any familiarity with a printed puzzle, the nylon interaction, like even a perfect print and a well-oiled one with like a silicone lube or something like that, there's still a rough grit to it, and these just glide across each other. It's almost like the nylon is self-lubricating. Just works flawlessly now. And the same goes, so I can show you here the, excuse me, I keep on dropping these pieces, the corner to center. This whole interaction is just perfect. So I'm really looking forward to it. I decided to show off these pieces. I haven't re-dyed them yet. So this black dye is from the original dyeing of the puzzle. And then I tumbled it, and as you can see, the tumbler doesn't really wear into the dye is really shallow, and the tumbler doesn't really wear much into it. So you can see on the tips here, they've lost a little bit of the dye, because the things that stick out wear down faster. So the tips of the corners here are showing through to the white nylon underneath. So I need to re-dye these, but I was worried that the dyeing process would get rid of some of the shine. I'm not sure, and so I wanted to show them off before I dyed them, and I'm going to hope for the best when I re-dye them. I re-dyed Will's Rex Rhombic Dodecahedron, and it did a great job. But I didn't polish this thing. I just did this with fine grit for way too long, a couple hundred hours. And so I've changed the process a little bit by using the coarse grit and then using the porcelain beads. And so I'm actually have hopes that this puzzle will look better, even though like turning wise, I don't think that you can really. I mean, this is essentially a friction free, and you can hear the sound is way different too than I'm not saying that these are bad turning puzzles, but just there's a certain amount of friction to it, and then there's the sound that you can really hear the nylon on nylon interaction and sort of the grit. Let's see if we can get better light on that. I can't tell how good that looks or not. And here I'll show you on the compared that to this. Yeah, and it just goes totally friction free. It turns flawlessly. And so I'm hoping that the Master Pentultimate will be, well, one, I'm hoping that it'll look way better, and then two, I'm hoping that it'll be a little bit less frictiony and a little bit smoother and better sounding. So I'm gonna go re-dye these, and then clean them up and assemble the puzzle, and then I'll show off the different steps as I think it's necessary. So hopefully by the end of this I'll have a stickered and working puzzle to show off. And I'm very pleased with how it's going so far, so stay tuned. Okay, the pieces are now dyed and mostly dried. They've lost a little bit of their shine, but they still have some of it. The pieces are a little bit more matte now. I was sort of expecting that the process of boiling and dyeing was going to cause some of the shine to go away. But in general, it's still, I think that they look pretty good. All of the pieces have a little bit of the shine. It's still incredibly smooth. Here's a corner. This was never tumbled with the porcelain beads, so it's a little bit more matte compared with the big flat face. It's pretty shiny. Here's a Pentultimate corner. So in general, I'm really pleased. The pieces still, of course, glide together really nicely. Although the dye, I mean, I haven't washed these very well. The dye does add a little bit of a grip. That's going to go away with when I silicone lube up the puzzle as I assemble it. So I'm going to assemble this puzzle. I'll take some pictures. I'll probably take a little bit more video. I'll show how it turns, and hopefully it'll turn out really well. Well, I finished assembling the Master Pentultimate, and the impossible has happened. It actually got better to turn. I was not expecting that at all. This puzzle I thought turned flawlessly, and indeed it did, but I assembled the puzzle incredibly loosely. That is, right now, almost nothing is tightened down at all. And when this puzzle was that loose, or even less loose than that before, it was it just caught pretty badly. And Eric told me, well, you know, this puzzle needs to be tight, and so tighten it. And so I tightened the puzzle all the way down. I tightened it to essentially where the multi-dodecahedron is at, and all the catching stopped. And so I thought that I would have to tighten this puzzle down before I started showing it moving, just because, you know, I sort of expected with all these parts out here floating that it would just need to be tight. But that is not the case. It basically doesn't catch anymore. And it is as loose as you could possibly get this puzzle, and still have, you know, like the pieces are literally like about to fall out. It's so incredibly loose, and yet it just turns no problem at all, just flawlessly. I think it looks great. It has gotten a little bit of shine back, in part because I tumbled the pieces all by themselves with no media, just against each other. And also there's some silicone oil on the outside of them right now, just because in the process of assembling it, lots of silicone oil got all over the place, including my hands, which are now filthy. So I'm gonna have to clean the outside of this before I try to sticker it, and I'll take lots of pictures of it in this state, and also when I sticker it, and I am really excited to see it completely finished and all tumbled. I think it's looking really beautiful here. So, yep, one more step and the puzzle will be done. Before I started tightening this puzzle, I thought that in the spirit of being crazy, I would loosen it even more and see how well it would stay turning no matter how loose I got it. So to demo how loose it is, I mean, it is, you know, pieces are going to fall out loose. Should be able to do something like that, and see how loose it is there. And yet, it still turns just fine, you know, and I mean, obviously the slice is completely blocked there, but you know, you just get stuff relatively close, and it just turns. You know, I'm pulling this over, and you know, sometimes it jams up a little bit, and then there it goes again, no problem. So I mean, this puzzle, something about the polishing and the lube, there's just no friction against the pieces anymore for them to catch on each other. And so they just, you know, get right out of the way. It's, I am really impressed by how well it continues to function, you know, completely all, well, you know, and then just wiggle a little bit and there it goes again. So obviously I'm not going to leave it this loose. In fact, I'm planning on tightening it down a whole bunch, just because you know, I don't really want the chance of a piece falling out or anything like that. And since there's, I mean, you can't really see it on camera, but I'm putting, like, you know, as little turning effort on this as possible. It's just so smooth. But because there's no friction between the pieces anymore, or, you know, significantly reduced friction, my plan is to tighten it down quite a bit, and hopefully it will stay just super smooth because there's so little friction. Well, I finally finished stickering the puzzle. It, I think, looks really good. I had to wait a little bit longer than I wanted to, because I ended up using way too much silicone lube in the puzzle. And the silicone lube actually sort of, after a certain point, it became counterproductive. It caused the puzzle to sort of get really grippy and tight, and it was very hard to turn for a while. And I had to wait about 2 days for the silicone oil to finished spreading around / evaporating / soaking into the nylon / me wiping it up, that sort of thing. And it left, I think it might have been the propellant in the CRC, but it left sort of this gross, sort of white, powdery, like calcium buildup type of material that I've had to sort of scrape out. So it didn't affect the turning of the puzzle too much, but it did make it a little bit less smooth than it was fresh out of the tumbler and freshly assembled. But in general, it still turns great. So I still have the puzzle much looser than it was designed to be. I mean, this puzzle was designed to be tight, and when it's loose, it tends to catch. It is looser than when Eric assembled it, significantly looser than when Eric assembled it, and it catches less. And I just think that that's because the pieces are smoother. They just glide across each other better. They're less likely to catch. In fact, let me show you how easy and loose I have this puzzle. It's very simple to turn with one finger. You know, which I can do it on the multi-dodecahedron too, except for just the level of friction on the multi-dodecahedron makes it a little bit harder, but it still works pretty well. And then the multi-dodecahedron has a clicking mechanism on the Megaminx right there, and so when it clicks into place, it can sort of be hard to get it started back up again with a single finger. So this. Right now, it turns, I would say, better just because it's so much easier to turn, and it really catches very infrequently. And when it does catch, let me see if I can get it to catch here. When it does catch, it only requires a teeny tiny bit of a wiggle, and it'll start going again. Well, okay, see there we go. I have a catch. And if you just take a little bit of pressure off the puzzle and then you just start turning again, it uncatches, which is very unlike a catch on sort of a typical puzzle, like that when it catches you sort of have to like readjust everything. And this one you just sort of shake it a little bit and it undoes the catch. And so I'm quite pleased with that. But if I find the catching annoying, I'll probably end up tightening the puzzle down so that it doesn't catch anymore, just exactly like the multi-dodecahedron essentially never catches, and it's really tight. And as you can see, it doesn't really affect the turning very much. So one of the problems with applying stickers on such a rough material, even after it's tumbled, the stickers still don't want to stick very well, and plus I sprayed it with so much silicone oil that like just the stickers didn't want to go at all. But luckily I didn't end up having to use any glue. I got them all stuck. I placed them all and I got them all stuck, and then I used a hair blow dryer and I heated the surface of each one of the faces of the hair blow dryer until it got really hot, which with my hair blow dryer was like 5 to 10 seconds for each face, and then I just pressed with my palm really hard on it. And now the stickers are stuck very well. In fact, you can see the texture of the nylon through the stickers. So let me see if I can reflect some light. And you should see it right there, that you can see the texture of the nylon through the stickers. And they look really, really good. So it's hard to tell what distance on this camera focuses, but the puzzle is looking great. It's turning great. It's turning so smoothly, and I know I don't have a before and after video, so you'll have to take my word on it, but this puzzle sounded basically exactly like that. You know, very smooth, but you know, very sandpapery. And now, because each piece is hollow, they resonate quite a bit, so it sounds different, but it still sounds sort of, it doesn't sound like a mass-produced puzzle. And that's just because every single piece on this puzzle, one, they're floating, so they have a little bit more wiggle room than a typical puzzle, and two, they're hollow, so I think that they end up resonating and sort of amplifying their sound. Compared that to, which this also has hollow pieces, but they're not floating. There's, you know, that's the sandpapery sound of an untumbled puzzle. And then this also has hollow pieces, but they're not floating. Compared to, see how it's louder. And again, I think it's because the pieces are floating, so they have a little bit more wiggle room, and because they're hollow, especially the center caps have this really large hollow cavity. I think it acts very much like a drum or the resonating chamber on a guitar or cello, that sort of thing. But It looks great. I'm incredibly pleased with it. I was comparing the tumble job to the Rex Rhombic Dodecahedron, and it's probably hard to see even with an HD camera. It's probably hard to see, but this nylon is tumbled ever so slightly more smoothly than this puzzle. However, I used coarse grit, which I think worked very well, but I only used coarse grit for like 3 days, and then I only used fine grit for like 3 days. And then the porcelain tumbling beads didn't actually smooth down the pieces, they just sort of made them shiny. Whereas on this puzzle, I tumbled it for, probably like 12 days straight with just the fine grit. And one of the things I've learned with playing with the tumbler is that the fine grit doesn't seem to... Basically, it takes off material roughly the same rate as the coarse grit, which seems counterintuitive to me. But it clearly takes off... it takes down bumps slower, and the coarse grit takes down the bumps faster. And so I guess if I were to go back, or if I were to tumble this again, I'd probably do it in the coarse grit for 4 days and in the fine grit for 4 days instead of 3 and 3. And I think that it would have taken out a little bit more of the sort of the modeling, sort of the unevenness of the surface. I'm hesitant to call it pitting because it's not really pitting. It's just it's sort of like an eggshell uneven surface on the nylon, which and again, it's going to be hard to see in HD, but I don't really know what to call this, but I would call it well, I'd call it like stone or sandpaper or something like that. You know, the printed surface of the parts before tumbling. So I'm incredibly pleased, and I'm probably going to tumble all of the puzzles that, you know, I want to make look really good or turn really good. I just bought a second tumbler, and I can't wait to get started. I've already got several other puzzles in the tumbler right now, but this puzzle just came out extremely good. I'm very, very, very satisfied with it. It was worth every minute of the time and the cost investment of the tumbler. It's great, and then I'm going to tumble all the rest of my puzzles. So I'll show it to you one last time. It just looks fantastic. Thank you very much for watching.